Good evening, good evening. Look around you, ladies. Look at all this strength in one room. Now, let's keep it real for a second. Every single one of you at some point has been standing on the edge of a relationship, just looking down into the fog and asking yourself, what is going on here? You feel that chill in the air. You see the car slowing down, but you just can't bring yourself to admit what the speedometer is telling you. So get comfortable. Get ready to take notes, because by the time you watch the complete video, you'll be stepping back into your life with your shoulders squared and your eyes wide open. Are you ready to stop wishing and start knowing? Listen to me closely. A relationship doesn't die in a single dramatic explosion. It dies by 1,000 quiet withdrawals. And the very first thing a man pulls back is his vulnerability. That's the most precious currency in a relationship. And when he starts hoarding it, when he closes down the emotional bank, you need to recognize that he's preparing to invest somewhere else or nowhere at all. When I talk about the conversations going surface level, I'm talking about the total disappearance of depth. Think about how it used to be. You used to be the person he called right after a huge meeting, whether he crushed it or blew it. You were the one he vented to about the stupid drama with his brother or the frustration with his job. You were his safe place. Now, check the tape. What does your communication look like today? He only offers transaction talk. A checked out man is focused solely on the logistics of living together. You talk about bills, what's for dinner, who's picking up the dry cleaning, and what time the repair guy is coming. That's not a relationship. That's a business partnership. He's treating you like the CEO of household operations, not the love of his life. You ask, how was your day? He says, fine. No follow-up, no detail. He doesn't tell you about the problem he solved or the funny thing that happened. Why? Because sharing that stuff connects him to you, and he's intentionally disconnecting. He's putting up a wall brick by brick. He deflects the deep dive. If you try to initiate a real conversation, a talk about his feelings, your future, or even a recent argument, he will deflect like he's trying to swat a mosquito. You say, I feel like we haven't connected lately. He says, oh, I'm just stressed with work. It has nothing to do with you. It's a classic line, by the way. You try to talk about your worries, and he just nods, gives you an offhand solution, and then immediately picks up his phone. He avoids talking about the feelings because that requires him to be present, and he is emotionally absent. He doesn't want to be vulnerable because he doesn't want to get any more entangled in the relationship he's trying to exit. If he opens up, you might think things are fine, and that makes his eventual departure harder. So he keeps it light, keeps it clean, and keeps his emotions locked down. You are the only one initiating emotional contact. You have to look at the effort ratio. Are you the only one asking the probing questions? Are you the one trying to get him to look up from the TV or put down the phone? Are you the only one saying, talk to me? If you stopped initiating the deep conversation right now, what do you notice? If the only things you talked about for a week were what you saw on the news and whether the mortgage was paid, would he feel like anything was missing? If the answer is no, then that communication line is dead. He has shifted from being your partner and confidant to being your roommate. Why does he do this? It's a self-defense mechanism. It's not always malicious. Ladies, sometimes a man is doing this to protect himself from having to face the messy, uncomfortable act of breaking up. He's hoping that by slowly fading out the emotional light, you'll feel the chill, notice the distance, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to say, I'm done. He gets to avoid the confrontation, the tears, and the responsibility of being the bad guy who walked away. But you deserve better than to live in a relationship that is slowly suffocating on polite conversation and shared bills. You deserve a man who is excited to tell you about his day and who cares deeply about what's on your heart. If the deep talks have vanished and all you're left with is the weather report and logistical planning, that's not a temporary slump. That's the sound of the engine turning off. You need to acknowledge that silence and prepare your heart for the reality so you can turn that pain into your power. Stop begging for the details. Stop pushing him to talk. Instead, you need to understand that his silence has already told you everything you need to know. Now, let's move on to the next sign, because this next one is about where he's spending his most valuable resource, his time, right? So you've seen the emotional distance in the conversation. Now, let's talk about the second major indicator, because this is where a man shows you definitively where he sees himself. He stops initiating the future. The engine runs out of gas. Listen, when a man is truly invested in a woman, when he is building a life with you, his mind operates on a long-term timeline. He doesn't just see Saturday, he sees the next decade. He sees the move, the family holiday, the new car, the retirement plan, and you are standing right next to him in every single picture. But when a man is preparing to leave, that long-term vision shrivels up. That's not just a sign, that's the sound of the engine running out of gas right in the middle of your journey. The future talk freeze. I want you to rewind and think about the dreams you two used to share. Maybe it was something as simple as, when we save up, we're going to fix the deck. Or next Christmas, we're taking the kids to the mountains. And now, when you bring up those very same dreams, what happens? He gets vague. Instead of giving you a date or a plan, he says, we'll see, or that's too far out to think about. He gets annoyed you bring up a 2-week vacation, and he quickly changes the subject or starts pointing out all the reasons why it can't happen. Suddenly, money is tight or his job is too demanding. He only focuses on the solo future. He might talk about his next career move, his new hobby, or his new apartment, but he leaves your name completely out of the equation. A man who is committed is talking about all. A man who is exiting is only talking about me. He has stopped thinking of you as a partner in destiny and started viewing you as a temporary traveling companion. He won't make a big financial commitment. He won't co-sign for anything. And he won't even book non-refundable tickets. Why? Because he doesn't want the messy strings that tie two lives together. The power of vague commitment. The most painful part of this sign is the vague commitment he sometimes offers just to keep you quiet. He'll throw you a crumb. Yeah. We'll talk about that kitchen renovation eventually. But there's no movement. There's no action. There's no. Let's look at paint samples this weekend. He's giving you the illusion of a future to avoid the conflict of ending the relationship now. He's trying to keep you on the hook just long enough until he's completely ready to jump ship. He's putting you on layaway. And you are too valuable to be on layaway. This is a matter of respect. When he refuses to talk about the future, he is disrespecting your time and your life plan. You are making career choices, friend choices, and life decisions based on the assumption that you have a partner building with you. He knows he's checking out, but he's letting you continue to invest your valuable energy into a relationship that he has already internally canceled. If he truly cared about you, even if he was confused, he would be honest enough to say, I need to pause on making big plans right now because I'm figuring some things out. But the man who wants to leave won't say that. He'll simply use silence and deflection to slowly push the shared future off the table. Your action step, you don't have to beg him to book a cruise. You simply need to observe. Look at your communication over the last few months. How many solid, definite plans did you two make together for 6 months or more down the line? If the answer is 0, and if he gets fidgety every time you try to sketch a future, that is your undeniable sign. You deserve a partner who is excited to build that future with you, not one who sees you as a roadblock to his own solo escape plan. Stop settling for a man who is only interested in what's happening between now and Friday. You need a man who is actively, enthusiastically planning the rest of his life with you. And if he's not doing that, then it's time for you to start making your own future plans. Now, let's get down to the brass tacks. We've covered the silent withdrawal from emotional conversation, and we've talked about the future freezing over. But the third sign, ladies, this is the most practical and visible proof of where his heart truly lies. This is when you stop being his priority. Look, a man will always make time for what he values. If you look at his schedule and see where his time, his energy, and his resources are being allocated, you will see a clear, undeniable ledger of his priorities. And when he's preparing to leave, you slip down that list like an anchor falling to the bottom of the ocean. Think about the difference between a man who is chasing you and a man who is checked out. A man who is chasing will move mountains just to get an hour with you. A man who is checked out will complain about moving a throw pillow to sit on the couch next to you. The moment he stops prioritizing you, you become an obligation, not an opportunity. He prioritizes everything else. You start seeing this shift immediately. Suddenly, his friends need him more than ever. His work requires more late nights. His new hobby, whether it's golf, gaming, or collecting porcelain dolls, becomes a non-negotiable scheduled event. He doesn't just want alone time. He schedules time away from you. You'll be sitting at home, scrolling through your phone, while he's out creating moments and memories with everyone else. And you realize you only get the leftovers of his week. You get the tired, grumpy man who collapses on the couch at 9 p.m. because he spent all his good energy being present and engaging with other people and other pursuits. You get the man who says he's too tired to talk, but then you see him wide awake, laughing on a FaceTime call with his buddy an hour later. This isn't about being clingy. This is about being a partner. In a healthy relationship, you are the default. Everything else is scheduled around that foundation. When he's checking out, everything else becomes the default. And you're the one that has to squeeze yourself into the cracks of his schedule. The quality time, deception, he might still be physically present. He lives there after all. But how often is he truly with you? He can be sitting right next to you, and his energy can be 1,000 miles away. This is where the difference between quantity and quality time becomes painfully clear. You're watching a movie, and he's scrolling through his phone, giving you the occasional grunt of acknowledgement. You try to tell him a story, and he interrupts you to comment on something he saw on Instagram. That's not quality time. That's just two people sharing the same Wi-Fi code. He's there in body, but he is completely absent in spirit. He's conserving his energy because he's not willing to invest it in you anymore. He stops doing things. For you, a committed man takes action. He is proactive. He sees you struggling and steps in, not because you asked, but because he sees your life as an extension of his own. When he wants to leave, he stops doing the little things that define the partnership. He stops offering to fix that leaking faucet you mentioned last week. He stops bringing you that favorite coffee. He stops defending you in front of his family or friends. Why? Because a man's effort is directly tied to his level of interest. When the interest dwindles, so does the effort. He stops seeing himself as your protector, your provider, and your teammate. He's only looking out for himself. This sign is crucial because it takes the guessing game out of the equation. You don't have to wonder what he's thinking. Just look at what he's doing. If his actions scream that everyone and everything else is more important than you are, you have your answer. And when you realize you're no longer the priority in his life, you must, for your own healing and peace, make yourself the priority in yours. Let's move on to the fourth critical sign. Ladies, and this one is often the most confusing because it can be mistaken for peace. This is the moment when the emotional temperature drops to absolute zero. This is, he stops fighting with you. The quiet check out. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, hallelujah, we stopped fighting. Things are getting better. Wrong. So wrong. There is a profound difference between a couple that has learned to communicate and resolve conflicts and a couple where one person has simply capitulated and stopped caring. Fighting in a healthy, committed relationship is actually a sign of investment. When a man argues with you, when he defends his position, when he gets passionate about a topic, when he insists on resolving the problem, he is doing that because he cares deeply about the outcome. He is showing you that the relationship is worth the mess, the headache, and the emotional energy required to keep it right. He is saying, through his frustration, I want to fix this because I want to stay here. But when a man is checked out, that energy vanishes. The frustration is replaced by something far more dangerous, indifference. The silence of disengagement, you try to bring up a problem, something that used to ignite a debate, and he just stares at you. He shrugs. He might say, whatever you want, or it doesn't matter, just drop it. He agrees just to shut you up, not because he actually agrees with you. You're thinking, wow, he's being so mature. No, he's being disengaged. He doesn't argue because he sees no point in spending his valuable emotional currency on something he's already decided is temporary. He's already made up his mind, and the outcome of the argument has zero bearing on his personal future. He's essentially treating you like a noisy television he can mute and ignore until he gets up to leave the room. When you bring up a serious flaw in the relationship and he responds with a casual, okay, or sure, honey, he is telling you without saying the words that he no longer cares enough about your feelings or the health of the relationship to expend the effort required to defend himself or work toward a compromise. He has decided to let you win every disagreement because your win is meaningless to him now. The absence of conflict is the absence of passion. Think about what happens when you stop fighting. You stop digging deep. You stop pushing each other to be better. You stop forcing those hard, clarifying conversations that are necessary for growth. You drift. He prefers this peaceful drift because it's easy. It allows him to exist in the house without confrontation while he solidifies his exit strategy. He is being a coward. He is using silence as a shield, so he doesn't have to face the music and be honest about his feelings. He's waiting for the water to cool down enough so that when he finally steps out, the temperature change won't be a shock to him. If the very arguments that used to define your relationship have suddenly disappeared, and the man who once cared about your shared life is now just nodding along, that's not reconciliation, that's resignation. You have to understand, you're not talking to your partner anymore. You're talking to a man who is actively trying to make himself comfortable in the waiting room before his flight out of your life. This indifferent silence is his way of emotionally severing the ties so the physical departure won't hurt him. Your job, ladies, when you hear this deafening silence, is not to try and start a fight to get him to talk. Your job is to listen to what his silence is telling you. It's telling you that your fight is over, but not because you won. It's because he walked off the battlefield. Now you need to gather your strength and recognize that his lack of caring is all the permission you need to start caring exclusively about you. All right, we've gone through the emotional withdrawal, the disappearance of the future, the shift in priorities, and the chilling silence of indifference. Now, we arrive at the fifth and often most undeniable sign, because this one bypasses words and hits you on a primal physical level. This is physical intimacy and affection vanish. Understand this physical touch is the language of connection. It's the invisible glue that holds a partnership together. I'm not just talking about the act of making love, though that is a huge part of it. I'm talking about the casual, unthinking, everyday gestures that confirm, I choose you, I want to be near you, and you are my safe space. When a man is preparing to leave, the physical walls go up before the spoken walls do. He starts to make his body unavailable because he's already made his heart unavailable. The retreat of the casual touch. Think about your daily rhythm. When things were good, you had a natural flow of connection. A hand on your shoulder as he walked past. A quick kiss. When he left for work, a foot resting against yours under the dinner table, or the instinctive spooning that happened when the lights went out. When he's checking out, all those spontaneous micro gestures stop. The space on the couch between you grows wider. You have to initiate the hug, and when you do, it feels stiff, like hugging a board. He's no longer your default snuggle buddy. He's now a cautious acquaintance. Why does he do this? Because physical touch releases the hormones that create bonding and attachment. If he's trying to detach from you, he has to shut down that process. He starts avoiding touch as a subconscious form of emotional self-preservation. It's his way of saying, I can't let myself get comfortable here because I'm not staying. The excuse for no intimacy when it comes to the deeper intimacy. The same withdrawal occurs, but often with a heavy layer of plausible deniability. He will suddenly become too tired, too stressed, or too distracted to initiate sex. If you try to initiate, he might go along with it grudgingly, but the passion, the eye contact, and the emotional presence are all missing. It feels like a chore, not a connection. And pay attention to the frequency. Different couples have different rhythms, but if there is a marked, sustained, and unexplained decrease in the desire for physical connection from his end, you have to read that sign. For a man, a lack of desire for physical intimacy in a relationship is often a direct reflection of an emotional disconnect. If he's not feeling it in his heart, he's not going to be feeling it anywhere else. He uses excuses because he doesn't want to hurt your feelings by admitting the truth. He doesn't want to be intimate with you because he is no longer committed to the idea of wuss. The thought of that deep connection feels like a lie he's telling himself and you. What you should not do, do not, under any circumstance, start begging for affection. Do not try to lure him into intimacy hoping that sex will somehow restart his feelings. It won't. You will only feel more humiliated and rejected when his emotional distance remains. Affection and intimacy must be freely given, not earned through negotiation. When you try to force it, you are confirming to him that you are desperately holding on to something he has already let go of. When you notice this physical withdrawal, it is your cue to recognize that the man who once longed to be close to you is now actively seeking distance. He is creating a physical chasm to match the emotional chasm he already built. Your job now is to acknowledge this space. Understand that this physical rejection is not about your worth, your beauty, or your desirability. It is purely about his decision to leave. Stop chasing the hand that is pulling away. Turn around, ladies, and reclaim your space, your dignity, and your worth. Because a queen doesn't beg a man to see her. She waits for the one who rushes to her side.